The Florida panther is featured in the April 2021 issue of National Geographic, and the article really focuses on conservation efforts, and the photos are absolutely stunning. Today, the photographer is joining us here on our streaming news channel. His name is Carlton Ward Jr. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you.
So it is quite a challenging process to get these photos, years in the making. Tell me about how you capture them.
It's hard to compress 5 years of work into a short summary, but a lot of the photography that you will see in the magazine is based on camera traps. So that is where I construct a studio in the woods where there's a professional camera, a few different light sources, a background that's kind of selected to communicate the panther's habitat, an infrared trigger or two that is like an invisible tripwire, so that when the animal walks by, it takes its own picture. That was absolutely necessary because these animals are so difficult to see in the wild. It's one of the rarer of all cats. There's only 200 of them spread across millions of acres. They're nocturnal. They're really secretive and elusive. So I really had to develop and work on these techniques of camera trapping to show these animals at all. In some cases, the image that's on the opening spread of the magazine, it took me 2 years with a camera trap on the same trail to be able to capture that moment that made it into the pages of National Geographic.
Wow. And which one is your favorite out of all the ones that you captured?
Oh man, that is that's a tough question. I would say the opening spread is my favorite from just visceral impact. Like you see into the eyes of this panther that is in motion, jumping over a section of swamp. It has energy, it has power. I think it's it captures the feeling and the essence of this really perseverant and resilient animal. But I would say overall, the most important picture, and therefore my favorite, is of a female panther. And she is the first female panther documented north of the Caloosahatchee River, north of Fort Myers, for the first time since 1973. And so she represents the hope for the recovery of the species, because panthers, for the previous 5 decades, the breeding population had been isolated in the southern tip of Florida. But to ever reach sustainable numbers, to ever reclaim enough territory throughout Florida to be secure for the future, there needed to be female panthers further north. And so that image is historic. And more importantly, there is one of her cubs right there next to her as they travel towards the camera. I had the privilege of working closely with researchers and conservationists, and the scientists at the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission got the first evidence of this panther. And I was able to set up, as part of this National Geographic assignment, and now share her story with a really wide audience. So that photo rises to the top.
That is really incredible. And that leads into my next question, because, when people see these images, they're going to think they're absolutely stunning and just breathtaking pictures. But what do you hope they take away from this spread in National Geographic and this article? And really, why did you take these photographs in the first place?
I see the Florida panther as a symbol for these amazing wild places that we still have in the state of Florida. And they're hidden in plain sight of our coastlines, of our urban cores. But we have true wilderness in the Everglades. We have vast ranch lands. We have these open spaces that need our attention and need our support if we want them to persevere into the future. The panther is the ultimate symbol of that. And so really my motivation, my hope, is that people will see these images of the panther. It'll draw them into the story of wild Florida. And in the middle of this magazine article, there's a beautiful map that shows the range of the panther, and set against it is the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And that's what I want people to take home from this, that we have a wildlife corridor, which is a network of amazing public lands like Everglades National Park, Ocala National Forest, the Green Swamp. And then we have working farms and ranches, orange groves, timber operations that are the fabric that holds all this together. And so it's this connected network of green that's a life support system for you and for me and for all Floridians. And it just so happens that we have this amazing state animal, the Florida panther, that can show us what we need to do for panthers, for other wildlife, and for ourselves here.
All right, Carlton, thank you so much for joining us today, giving us some insight on these beautiful pictures, your project that has been years in the making. And again, this is in the April 2021 issue of National Geographic. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you. We'll have to get you out into the swamp to see some of these places yourself.
Oh my goodness, we'll see.